Hello, this video is intended to help guide your organization as you apply for community project funding and congressionally directed spending for fiscal year 2023. Deadlines for this funding are largely in April 2022, so time is of the essence. My name is Chelsea Burrows, and I'm a public policy analyst at NALCAB. If you need assistance or clarification on any of the points made in this video, please contact us at policy@nalcab.org. Let's start out with a quick explanation of what these requests are. Formerly known as earmarks, CPF and CDS requests are a way for members of Congress to directly fund projects in their districts and states through the federal budget. Community project funding requests and congressionally directed spending requests are almost exactly the same thing, but have different names depending on which chamber of Congress you are applying to. CPFs are earmarks in the US House, and CDS requests are earmarks in the US Senate. So what's the timeline for this? Applications for this funding are due very soon. Different members of Congress will have different deadlines for applications, so it is crucial that you figure out which office you're applying to and what that specific deadline is. In general, we expect most deadlines to be in April. Once your applications are submitted to your member of Congress, your members will then select their favorite projects and submit them to the Appropriations Committee of their chamber. The requests then wait for the normal appropriations process to complete. Funding would be dispersed after the passage of the full fiscal year 2023 budget. In a perfect world, that bill would be passed in September 2022. However, this year the budget didn't get passed until 5 months into the fiscal year, and it has been quite a few years since the budget has gotten passed on time. So to summarize, your applications are due now, very soon. If your applications are selected, you will also likely know soon, probably by May or June, but can expect to receive funds sometime after September 2022. So we've chopped this process up into 6 steps to make it easy for you to apply. The first step is to reach out to your member of Congress. This could be your representative in the US House or either one of your senators. Not all members of Congress are choosing to participate in this process, so it is vital that you figure out who you can apply to. You can find the phone number of your member of Congress on their website. Call their DC office and ask for the staff contact who is handling CPF applications if it's a US House office, or congressionally directed spending requests if it's a Senate office. You want to get the name, email, and phone number of the person in their office responsible for these applications. This person will be your main point of contact during the application process and your most important resource in crafting a successful application. These links are live, and these slides will be provided with the video, so you can click these links to find your representative and your senator. So step 2 is to get the basic information. First and foremost, what is the deadline? How and where can applications be submitted? Do you have a written application guide that can be used? Is the office hosting any informational webinars, office hours, training sessions that you can register for? Is there any other crucial information that you need before an application is submitted? Remember that each office is doing this process differently, so this will vary from office to office. Step 3 is to determine your project eligibility. Projects must be eligible under a specific account in the relevant appropriations bill. So what does this mean? You may remember from previous NALCAB policy webinars that the annual federal budget is made up of 12 bills known as appropriations bills that are passed every fiscal year. Each one of these 12 bills corresponds to a subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee and has a jurisdiction over a set category of federal spending. For example, the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Subcommittee of the US House Appropriations Committee drafts the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Bill. And that bill funds the Department of Transportation and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So within these agencies are specific funding programs. These programs are the so-called accounts that your projects need to be funded under. This is a lot of jargon, so let's make it simple. You need to already know what your project is. If you don't have a specific project already in mind as you're watching this video, this application process might not be for you. You need to talk to the point person in your member of Congress's office and explain your project and ask which appropriations accounts it could possibly fund it under. They will help you find the exact account. You should be picking an appropriations count to fit your project, not the other way around. Some other important notes on eligibility is that you should be requesting around $1 million. Most applications tend to be funded around that number, although it can be variable depending on the account. You must also be able to and prove in your application that you can spend this money within fiscal year 2023, which is between October 2022 and September 2023. So remember that this funding is tied to the annual federal budget process, which means that it is a one-year deal. You cannot request multi-year funding, and you must spend any money you receive before the end of the fiscal year. You should also be applying to the office your project is geographically located within. This, of course, depends on the size of your project, who it's benefiting, and whether or not the representatives and senators in that geographical area are participating in the CPF-CDS process. You are much more likely to have success with your application if you apply to the office representing the geographical area it's in. If your project spans multiple districts in the U.S. House of Representatives, you may want to talk with staff members in the offices of those representatives and determine who's participating in the program and which office is best to apply to. You could also potentially submit applications to more than one office, but if you do, you should note that in your application. If your project is over a very large geographical area, it may make more sense to apply via one of your senators instead of your member in the U.S. House. Okay, step 4 in crafting a strong application is ensuring that you are showing community support. In the U.S. House, this is a requirement of your application and one of the most important components of it. No CPF applications will be accepted without this information. In the U.S. Senate, it is not a blanket requirement for applications to have this information. However, some senators will still decide they want to see this proof and will require it on their individual applications. So requirements vary from office to office. Most commonly, proof of community support takes the form of letters of support from elected community leaders like city council members, mayors, state level legislators, and others in similar positions of power. However, it can also be mentions of similar projects in state intended use plans, referendums or resolutions passed in favor of the project, news pieces and articles in support of it, or more ultimately, your goal here is to show that the project is A, necessary, and B, wanted by the community in your district. This is included as step 4 prior to writing the rest of your application because we are on a tight time crunch. It may take a little bit of time for public officials to return your emails, get these letters to you. The sooner you're reaching out, the better. And that brings us to step 5, actually writing out your application. Some offices may have you fill it out through a Google form or other online portal. Other offices may provide a list of questions for you to answer, and you need to write that up in a Word document or PDF and submit by email. Depending on which appropriations account you are applying under, you may have to answer additional questions specific to that account. So that's something to really pay attention to. You're going to need to include proof of your nonprofit status because for-profit entities are not allowed to apply for this type of funding. And you're going to provide a budget breakdown. So showing how this funding will work with other funding sources. Is this project only being funded by this application? Are other funding sources being used? Are any of those other sources also types of federal funding? Have you clearly indicated and shown in your budget that this application is only for fiscal year 2023? So those are all relevant questions you'll need to show or answer in your application. You will also need to include an explanation of why your project is worthy of receiving taxpayer-funded support. This is a crucial piece of your application where you make your case that your project is beneficial to the public and should receive federal funding. And of course, as we discussed a minute ago, you may need to provide proof of community support. And we have reached our final step, asking for feedback and submitting your application. So before you submit, I suggest asking the point person in your member of Congress's office if they can review the application and provide feedback. Remember that you are a constituent of the representative and therefore are deserving of dedicated assistance and attention, so take advantage of that. This can help ensure your application includes all necessary materials and isn't missing anything important. And finally, submit your applications. Although deadlines are right around the corner, it's very important that you submit your applications on time. As soon as applications are submitted to offices, offices then have a tight deadline to pick their favorite projects and submit them to the Appropriations Committee. So submitting late does put you at a big disadvantage. Admittedly, some deadlines have already passed, some are less than a week away. Time is tight. All I can say is you really should be working as quickly as possible, and the NALCAB Public Policy team is here to help you. We will be a resource for you during this process. And finally, we have 2 resources slides here that will help you. All of the official guidance from the U.S. House Appropriations Subcommittees are listed. We also have some Senate-specific information and some general resources on the second slide. However, do remember that your best and most accurate source of information will be your member of Congress. I suggest using these sources if your member of Congress's staff is not providing a lot for you as a fallback, but ultimately your first source should be your member of Congress. Okay, that's it. It's a lot of information and a lot to process in a quick time frame. NALCAB is here to assist you at every step of the way, so please feel free to reach out to us at the email listed here, policy@nalcab.org. We hope this video was useful to you, and we look forward to helping you apply for this excellent funding opportunity. Thank you.